Hi, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. And I'm Karleen. This is Hello Karleen. And I like to dive into the deeper side of things of our lives and what's going on out there. Current events, life, things, just the things. So this weekend has been incredible. It's been momentous. And we'll dive into why. We'll dive into why, but I think Americans stood up. I think they did. I think they did. So let's start way back when and why I decided I was going to do this video after I thought, maybe not. But this booklet fell into my hands again. And this is an old antique book. It's from 1886. And yes, I know some of you are going to be saying, why are you touching that with your bare hands and not with gloves? Well, supposedly it's okay. Early 1800s is when we need to start wearing gloves, apparently. That's what I was told by the person that gifted me this book because they knew that I liked antiques. Unfortunately, this is a good friend who has now passed away. He used to have a bookstore in which he dealt also with antique books. So this is a missions. It's a collection of magazines for children and printed. This is the 45th year of its printing in 1886. And this is a missionary booklet, and it speaks about the German mission in particular to Africa. And with detailed drawings of the people that were there, what they came across there. And surprising for many, this book is actually very for the times, and even for now, very respectfully written. It is it shows, even though their perspective is very, antiquated, they do try to reflect a kind of love, if you will, for the people, respect for the people that they encountered. The way that they're spoken about and all the stories written in here is actually very positive, and it's mainly focused on introducing God, but it's written in such a gentle, well, it is a booklet for children, but written in such a gentle way. And so one of the stories caught my eye. And that story was about, I can't even pronounce the name. And let me see if I can find it. Mangini. I'm not quite sure how it's properly pronounced. But according to this story, and I'm not going to because it's written in old German, so I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but just the gist of the story is that Mangini was the second son of a chieftain, and this chieftain went to war and left his 4 wives at home. And so Mangini begged his parents, everybody, please let me go with my dad, let me go to war with my dad. And so he went to war with his dad. Unfortunately, his father lost the war and was taken out. And Mangini didn't want to return home at this point because he figured that his village would have been eradicated. There was nothing to go home to. And even if, as the second in line, it might not be the safest place for him to be. So he moved on, and he had heard about this place called Natal. And he decided this is where he's going to go. And back in the day, apparently, Natal sounded to people the same way that London may have sounded to people. It was a place where anything is possible. Gold, money lies in the roads, lies in the streets. And so get there. It's going to be amazing. So he rolled up his carpet, because apparently that's what they traveled with back then, and made himself on his way. So once he got close to where he wanted to go to, and he was in one of the bigger cities, Durban, I think he wrote, he asked around, what do I need to do? How do I get to Natal? How do I survive? And so people were telling him, you need to be in service. You need to go in service in some way, shape, or form. So you need to go work for someone, make your money. And so he applied at this lady's house. He just knocked on her door, apparently. And he was lucky because she was a good Christian. This is where it comes in. And so she took him in because he was a young boy and decided to put him on the right path, but she didn't stress him. And that's what I found so interesting, like in 1886, that they actually write this. She didn't push it on him. She didn't stress him, nothing. She just lived her life and let him discover. And so eventually he saw her praying over a book or reading a book, and he was wondering, what is she doing? Because he'd never seen a book before. He didn't know what that meant. And so he went outside and he was running errands or whatever, and he saw this young boy and he was reading a poster or something that was. And so he asked the boy, "What are you doing? Like, and what is this?" And so the boy told him and explained the letters to him. And he was so smart and so intelligent, according to this book, that he immediately picked up on the letters and started repeating the letters and realizing, oh, this is easy. I can learn this. And so the boy tells him, "Why don't you go to the missionary school? And that's where they're going to teach you how to read and write." So he went to the missionary school, and they didn't try to push Christ on him, apparently, according to this book. They just taught him how to read and write along with all the other kids. And eventually he started hearing that they had meetings and gatherings in the evening on Fridays and Saturdays. So he decided he was going to try one out and go and see. And so that's what he did. And he ended up in a prayer circle. And he fell asleep in the prayer circle, so he was kicked out. And they told him if he's not there to sleep, he's there to pray. If he wants to sleep, he needs to go home. So he went home, but on the way home, he started thinking, what is with these prayers? Why are people praying? What is it about prayers? What's so important? The person that he worked for was praying. He saw the boy that was reading the poster was praying. So what was going on with these prayers? He needed to know. And so eventually he started going to, you guessed it, Bible school and so on and so forth to try and learn. And the end of the story is he himself turned into a pastor, and his sermons are, excuse me, were wonderful and amazing. And there was all full of truth and strength there. Mhm. So, but all these stories, to my surprise, when I read through them, because I expected to find, all these derogatory things or denigrating things. And while they do write in a certain way that they found the cultures that they encountered simplistic compared to their culture at the time. The people were very open-hearted, very warm, very kind, very giving, very loving, very, at the time, truthful. Occasionally, they would come across people in some of the stories that were a little bit more intelligent, but in the stories, they always phrased it in quite a positive way. I was shocked when I read this, right? So, and so in any case, what made me think about this book and this past weekend, yesterday, and the arc of development that humanity is going through. Sorry, you guys, it is so hot here. It is so hot, I'm like melting. But what is this arc of development that humanity is going through? I mean, I can only speak for the Western development, obviously and clearly, right? When we look back into history, because that's what influences where we are today in the Western world. So when I think about serfdom and how that all went and how people rose up against that and refused to continue being serfs, refused to continue being born into a position that was that they couldn't outdo, that they couldn't get away from. That was what they were born into. That was the class they were born into. That was what God determined for them, and they couldn't get out of it. But eventually they rose up against that and broke that mold, broke it completely wide open, so that now when we try to think back to the way that they thought back in 1200 whatever, 1300 whatever, it's nearly impossible. It's absolutely impossible to think that way. And then we moved into colonialism. Yeah, started in the 1500s, right? So this whole domination cycle moved into that. Okay, they couldn't dominate anymore where they were. Am I even streaming? Yes. They couldn't dominate anymore where they were. I just had to check. I thought it stalled for a second. Um, so they expanded it outward and started dominating everything out there. And then we moved into the era of revolutions, right? So people started revolting even more, even deeper, even bigger against the overarching monarchical systems, like in the French Revolution, right? The American Revolution against Britain. On and on and on it goes. And then we moved into the next big shift, the industrialization and the building of empires. And then we moved into the next big shift, World War II and post World War II, and the breaking down of the colonial empires, with many of these countries finding freedom from the Commonwealth. Some of them are still in it, but finding freedom from their overlords, their colonial overlords, in some ways. And now we're moving into what happened yesterday, which is incredible. It is so deeply profound that there's a kind of a silence around it, a reverent silence. It's almost as if the world is standing with you. The world is standing with you. And there's this wow, they did it. 5 million people. Not bad, you guys. Not bad at all. That is amazing. That peacefully came together to say, not again. We're not going down this pathway again. No, we don't need to learn this lesson again. We're not doing it. Will it be enough to jump the timeline that we're on? I don't know. I'm not quite sure, but it did mark a statement. Um, it did carve an anchoring for a certain frequency, for a certain consciousness to make its home here as well, to feel free to exist here. So that's quite the amazing thing. But the jump that I'm speaking about between this book and how people used to think is there are similarities, right? That was the story. Those were the stories for the children that were told back then. That was the worldview. It was very black and white. It was very good or bad. It's very and people thought they were doing good. People thought they were doing absolute good with what they were doing and trying to limit the experience of others in a certain way or dictate to others in a certain way. But there's also this concept of being saved and those that were saved and those weren't saved, right? Which I find creeps into the new, a friend of mine calls it the new cage, new cage mentality, which is a very, very similar, that there's some kind of an outward savior that is coming, that is showing up. But if we look through history, it's always been the people that have saved themselves. Nobody comes to save you. And it's really sad because this being saved is so deeply ingrained in our psyche, probably through children's stories, through religious stories, obviously, as well. But it keeps us passive. It keeps us not stepping forward in our own strength, on our own pathway. It keeps us in a position of waiting, anticipation, in a kind of a limbo. And it keeps us weak, right? Because it keeps us having to do something to be worthy of being saved. It doesn't acknowledge our inherent worth and our inherent strength, and that we've already been given everything we need to save ourselves. And so this past weekend has been a step, I feel, towards that, towards the collective realizing, or not even realizing because they already realized it, but actually stepping up again and saying, we're going to have to save ourselves. We are going to have to save ourselves. And that's been something I've been going on and on and on about for you guys that were here with me for a while, that people need to realize that there is no savior figure in the figure that they think is showing up. And I know some people are thinking, oh wow, okay, this is 5D chess. Like that's a favorite saying, but honestly, the ramifications on the lives of others that are innocent is so obvious and so profound that this cannot be something that is in any which way, shape, or form coming from a positive space. Because coming from a positive space, it protects the vulnerable, it shelters the weak, it supports the disenfranchised, all of that, right? It doesn't ride in on the backs of those that are already suffering. So if something does that and simultaneously says it's of the light, that can't be quite right. Like it just cannot. And from all the different ways to clean up a nation or clean up a group of people or a tribe or you name it that exists out there, why this one that hurts others? So there's a lot I feel that some people, I don't know, still haven't satisfactorily answered for me. But to me, it's clear that this what happened yesterday is a great step in the air quote right direction, that people are realizing we have to step up, we have to come save ourselves. It's always been the people, by the people, for the people, through the people, and it's never been any other way. So that I'm super happy about, because I wasn't feeling it the last couple months. I felt a lot of people were just, I don't know, kind of on the bandwagon, and it just felt really sad. But this yesterday was very, very interesting. So similar to these old times, it feels like we're realizing the stories that have been told to us are not quite true anymore, that they they can't help us anymore. They can't support us anymore. They can't they're not useful anymore. And now this old paradigm is cracking. And I'd say this old paradigm of waiting to be saved, waiting for that savior figure, and finding deeper truths within those old stories, right? But that is cracking open to reveal something different. And I feel like this isn't the end of it. It's not the last time that people will have to stand up over the next couple of years. And it's not the last time that people will stand up over the next couple of years. Now, that brings me to my next point, which is at the same time, there's this feeling of 5 million people doing this really amazingly, beautifully well, not being pushed too much into one side and not being pushed too much into the other side, considering the grand scale and the number of people that were involved with this. It was relatively, in air quotes, peaceful. But I do feel that there will be a push coming to, and this may be through actors that show up afterwards or actors that show up within, that are there solely to push things over the line, solely to antagonize, agitate, make things happen. And so people have to be really mindful of that, really aware of that, because clearly these situations eventually may be used to actually further a different idea or ideology than what is actually intended. So, um, let me check in with the chat here. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a long, long time. Hi, Christine. Yeah, so it's interesting, because that's what I feel is the next thing that we really have to watch and look out for, is being pushed into a certain direction. And that direction is going to continue, because the person that is being pushed against is important in the scale of things, obviously, but he's also simply a gateway, a portal, a pathway for the actual ones behind the scenes that actually have the ideas and the agendas of how things need to move forward, how things need to be moving forward from this point. And the protest can absolutely be used to further that. So people have to be mindful and wary. As you can tell, I'm being mindful and wary how I'm articulating things and saying things because, yeah, you guys know, you guys know, you guys know. So, yeah, but I do see that coming up in the future still yet, that things will be uh maybe in regards to identification, maybe in regards to travel, maybe in regards to there will be certain kind of new limitations or new things imposed or put out there. So we'll see what actually happens, but that's what I'm feeling. Now, some people are talking about this being actually a rite, it being a some kind of an energetic sacrifice or energetic and it I have to be so careful. I'm like hesitating. But some people are talking about it being an energetic sacrifice in some way, shape, or form in order to further the actual agenda, which is slowly starting to heat up in the Middle East and to bring that about. And there always needs to be some kind of an offering, it seems, by way of energy, human energy, in order for things to escalate, in order for things to go in a direction that would um, that they're looking for or that they're desiring and that they're wanting. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. But yesterday did mark a point. Yesterday is an anchoring point for a certain level of energy, which is absolutely beautiful and amazing. But I am concerned that it's not going to stay there, that it's not going to, that this is not going to be enough, A, and B, that things in the future, as they try to repeat this, they need to repeat this, may escalate in a way that benefits others. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Anyhow, let's check the chat. How are you guys doing? How are you guys doing? How is everything for you? How are you feeling about the events of June 14th in the United States with the No Kings demonstrations? Where did I put my pen? 1 second. I have to get my pen. Nobody has any thoughts on the No Kings demonstration yesterday? I had to get my pen and I'm wearing shorty shorts, so I didn't want you to see my shorty shorts. Yeah. So what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling as I'm writing No Kings and seeing what's coming through for me is that this is definitely a spiritual warfare. This is definitely a pushback. It's a pushback of the higher consciousness. It's absolutely, and it's coming in through the people. Now, what I'm being reminded of as well is that higher consciousness can also, it doesn't necessarily only come in through people in power. That's what we always, I don't know, in recent years, especially in the new cage, seem to forget that God's spirit usually uses normal, average, everyday people like David and Goliath, like many channels, psychics, healers, you name it. They're very regular, everyday, down to earth, community minded people, very faithful, but not simplistic. And many of them uneducated, because education can actually stand in the way of divine information, inspiration coming in and coming through. So this, with the people rising up, similar to old revolutions and old rise ups, is actually, that's where the actual divine consciousness is flowing through. It's not flowing through people in power at this time in that way, through certain individuals, yes, but not through power at large. And it's always been done this way because to prove that, oh, oh, okay, okay, I meant to start speaking about this to prove the power of God, if you will. And what I was reminded of is an old mentor of mine who's unfortunately also passed away now. He was in Vancouver, and he used to play the flute. That was his medicine, was playing the flute. And he would get us into the most divine spaces in his meditations by playing his flute. And one day he said to me, you came through in this body because you are here to, one of those that are here to show that the message can come through. The message comes through whoever God chooses, not who people choose, because people always go subconsciously to the people that they feel attracted to hear a message, or to validate what they already think they know or what they already know. And so they'll only take the information from certain people. They'll only take the information from certain imagery. And people like me, clearly I'm not the only one, but people like me are here to break that open, are here to crack that. And so, of course, we're going to be very triggering to certain people, and I am triggering to a lot of people. So that reminds me of this as well. This whole No Kings protest, where it's coming through the unexpected. It's coming through, once again, even though this has been done in history, it's always unexpected when certain people step up, or when certain people rise up, or where a certain layer rises up. And a question I had was, is this orchestrated? Because certain people are thinking this is orchestrated. This is some kind of a manipulation. This is not real. This is something that's part of the bigger plan to continue to subjugate people. And I'm hearing, no, it wasn't orchestrated. This is actually the divine energy flowing in, reminding people of their power in community, their power in the collective, their power in sticking together, and the power of a joint higher consciousness, the power of higher consciousness. Some of you remember that I've been speaking about that as well, that our consciousness in groups need to rise, that group consciousness needs to rise when people get together, because historically it's always gone kind of downhill. And this yesterday was one of those events where group consciousness was rising, and we can see a higher group consciousness come through. How is this going to end up? I keep hearing this will be done again, like it has to be done again. But that's when people have to watch out, because that's when they're going to be attacked. That's when they're going to be sabotaged, like something coming in. Like all of a sudden I saw this energy going under invisibly and inside of it. So the next time that this is done, and there will be another time, that's when people have to watch out. Will this do anything? Not yet, not yet. And this is one of the more dangerous times of the shift that we're going through, and that is happening. And it was, this is part of the shift. Yeah, this is one of the most dangerous times of the shift that is happening, that we're going through, is the normalization, where people are going to start feeling like this is normal. This is a normal way to live, with someone in office that nobody wants, or not a lot of people want, and protests on again, off again, subjugation. And slowly it's going to slide to, if people are not careful, to things being orchestrated in a way, right? Again, I have to be careful. So I might do a full Patreon video on this, but it's definitely we're walking a very thin line here. Mm. What else am I hearing? Shh. It will have to get bigger and louder. And it feels like, what is the correlation I'm asking between there and the Middle East and what happened in the Middle East or what is happening in the Middle East? Always distractions, eh? And that's the thing. That's what I wanted to say before, that even when something is interesting in this matrix that we're in, because even when something is intended to be good, somehow it always twists into the opposite. So, for example, this June 14th event, intended to be good, used as well, though, was also hijacked and it was used as a distraction for what was happening on the other side of the world, even though it's real and it was intended to be a good thing. So there's that. Um, this is going to be done again, people. It has to be done again. It has to be done again. Mm, interesting. Okay. That's all I'm hearing for now. But I'm hearing that, and I know and I feel that this is a really powerful turning point in the timeline that we're on. It's a very yeah, it's a very powerful point, but it's going to be repeated, and we have to be careful as we move forward with everything that we do, because things are going to start, they're going to start using things against us or using, yeah, I don't need to articulate further. So let's turn the attention now to the Middle East and what's happening there and what went on, what is going on there. Hmm. Now, I had some interesting conversations with some Muslim friends of mine, and it was one of those nights where you sit at the table, the dinner table, and just everybody's talking and everybody's just throwing it on the table, and people are getting upset, but then they're coming back into the conversation. And it was a really good chat. But one of the things that kept coming up was the imbalance, the unfairness of it all. And so, no, we don't expect this world to be fair, but it's the image that the media has created is so profound and so pervasive that it's the damage is hard to reconcile. But when we stop to think how many people are anti something, whether it be anti, you name it, whatever it is, how many of those people that are anti something are anti because of the mental concept, right? And how many have actually had negative encounters or engagements in a level or to the point that would justify their antiness against this thing and or this person, culture, you name it. So, for example, if we're going to be anti Muslim, how many people have actually had hardcore engagements, specifically from Muslim, that justify that level of hatred? Or if they have a hatred of Black people, or if they have the hatred of what have you, how many have had a really bad encounter with them? And for most people, it's the image that comes through the media. For most people, it's what everybody's talking about and what they hear on the news every night or every day, or what they read on social media. And this shapes their opinion, it shapes their lens through which they see the world and other people, and it shapes everything. Because as we were talking, what was coming out was they have issues with the fundamentals in their religion as well. Like, these fundamentals are not just dangerous for Christians and Western societies, it's their own people as well. And to reduce Islam to just this in comparison, this handful of absolute right-wing fundamentalists, it's actually doing a disservice to a lot of people. And that we don't do that though, right? We don't do that though when we're thinking about Christian systems, that we reduce it to fundamental Christians, or technocratic systems, which are just whatever belief it is, it doesn't matter. If you're strong on one side of it and strongly into it and completely, right, left, whatever, but you're completely polarized in your view of what you believe in, then there's a fundamentalism there. And so is the Western world run by fundamentals? Of course it is. But they get to determine the experience and the lens of everybody else unseen. Nobody notices that. So yeah, we know that through the whole saying of the victor writes the history, the victor writes the story, the victor writes his story, right? But it really affects the very real lives of everybody, everybody. And so it's incredible because a lot of people, new cagers as well, like to, when I was a couple of years ago, it was dismiss the story, forget your story. But stories are the ultimate. That's all we have. Everything we have is a story. And we're on this rock in the middle of space, and we don't even know where in space. Like, we pinpointed a little bit through through our Milky Way galaxy, but we're this irrelevant planet on an irrelevant spiral arm, rotating around an irrelevant sun at the end of the day. And we're all together on this rock, drifting through space at speeds that are incredible. And going where we don't know, but the whole solar system is going in one direction. We're drifting on this rock with it. And all we're doing is telling ourselves horror stories on the long night home. We're telling each other horror stories, and we're sticking to these stories. We're identifying with these stories. We're defending these stories. We're thinking that's all there is the story, is that story. And it's not about dismissing the story or saying the story is irrelevant, because it's clearly not, but realizing that we have the ability to shift the story, to change the story that we tell ourselves, about ourselves and about each other, and to others about each other as well. So I feel like yesterday marked a point where the collective consciousness, not just the individual consciousness, the collective consciousness realized, I have power over the story. I can stand up and change the narrative. I can say, not with me, not today. I am protesting. I'm not going down that pathway. That's not my route. And you can't make me continue to participate in this story. You can't. And everything we tell each other, from boundaries, through borders, through nationalities, through everything, it's simply a story. It's simply a story. And I feel like the collective in the US finally clicked into that in a way that was palpable, perceivable, expressionable yesterday. And I feel like this is a way deeper marker in our collective development than we might realize right now. I hope that made sense the way I said it. Yeah, it wasn't really Healer Girl. It wasn't really covered in the news at all, was it? It wasn't. Like I had to dig as well to find information on it. But how you kind of 5 million people is a lot of people. A lot of people. And considering some were estimating at the military parade, there may have been 10,000. So we see who, I mean, we already knew who the media serves, but now we're really seeing it. We're really seeing it. And we're also seeing the profound effect it has on um, your consciousness, literally, like your consciousness, your ability to perceive, your ability to um, what you focus on, what you perceive when you focus on something. Leah, no, to your comments about the savior complex, do you see a time when there isn't a president elected, but more so in council? Yes, but much, much further in the future. Actually, I see a time where we have nothing, absolutely nothing. That's what I keep seeing, is everybody is tapped into their higher consciousness, to their deeper consciousness, the one consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And just like everything else in the universe, everything has its time, its place, its space, its orbit, its pathway. Just like ants seem to organize themselves, bees seem to organize themselves. We're going to do it too, because we all know where we belong, right? If we leave out the entire cultural conditioning, societal programming, and so on and so forth, we all know exactly where we want to be, what we want, and where we belong. And that's the future that I see for everyone. Is criminality is also going to be treated much, much differently and seen differently. It's not going to be treated the way that we do it today, and it's not going to be as extensive or expansive as we have it today. So there's that. It's going to be a lot rarer because people are going to be more in their middle, centered, living the lives they're meant to live, being in the space they're meant to be in, knowing it, feeling it, living it. Yeah. So it's that's what we're moving into, but it's going to take a very, very long time. This is not clearly not next year or the year after, but the outcome is no organizing structure at all, because from the outside, or disciplinary or authoritarian, because that is all coming from within. We're organizing from within. And we can do it because some of you guys, I don't know if you've been to, for example, some of you, maybe Japan or other countries like that, where the culture is extremely, extremely, extremely polite. And so you can walk through downtown Tokyo and nobody oversteps a line or a boundary. It's so polite. Nobody bumps into you. Nobody, like, it's like nobody touches your personal bubble, your personal space. Even though it's a full city, you never have the feeling like, oh, something just walked through my energy. It's very, 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 and I feel like that's how we're going to be moving in the future, is like everybody like fish in school. And there's going to be more telepathy in the future as well. Oh, there's that. That's what I'm picking up, is a lot more telepathy, a lot more open telepathy, accepted telepathy. And because people won't be as afraid of connection and losing themselves or their identities through being connected to one another. That's what's blocking our telepathy right now, and our capabilities to really connect with one another on that level, is the subconscious but very deeply ingrained fear that we'll somehow lose our identity or lose ourselves. And once we overcome that fear, and that fear is dissipated, and we have a different idea or connection to the concept of being one or being a people together, right? We'll be able to experience telepathy on a much deeper, grander, more wonderful scale and not lose our identities. So that'll help as well with organization and the flow of things. The media has a lot of power over the masses. It's incredible how much power it has over the masses. Absolutely incredible. And it's incredible how hard it is to go up against that and how much we don't realize comes from the media in our opinions, in our perspectives, in our ideas. It's incredible. But like I said before with that example, when we really stop to think, why do I dislike or distrust a certain group? Or why do I have bad feelings around a certain group, even though I've never had an encounter with anyone out of that group? Or if I had an encounter, it was never negative. Um, Media. So super important to watch that, especially if you've, to do the self-reflection and the self-growth. If you yourself have never had a negative experience, why are you feeling so negative about something or someone, right? Mm, wow, it's really coming down outside. It is raining hard. It's pouring. Like I'm sitting in a cloud right now. It's very foggy everywhere, and the rain is just coming down. It's just pouring. It's beautiful. So if you hear that in the background, I don't know if this microphone picks it up or not, but that's what's happening. Hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing is that people woke up during I mean, it was 5 years ago that now that everything kind of that we had a massive break in the timeline drift, right? And in 2020, and that's when people really started waking up that the world isn't the way that they thought it would be. And now they're trying to tell us that everything's back to normal and we're trying to pretend like we're back to normal, but we're really not. Absolutely not. And I don't, in all honesty, and I think we have to speak about these negative developments to honor that pathway as well, to honor that pain. It's kind of like I can't turn World War II into Disneyland. It just doesn't work. It would dishonor the people that went through what they went through. And it's the same thing with our times now. Like we have to honor what we've been through and the trauma that we've been through the last couple of years. And otherwise we'll never be able to heal it, right? And it's still going to take a while, but a lot of things have changed since then, and the isolation has gone up, the mental health has gone up, issues, the awareness of mental health, the focus on mental health. A lot of things, people are more cocoony, they're more stay within their own little groupie. They're not as open anymore, generally speaking, to the world. Yes, they still travel, but it's got a different flavor now. It's there's always this latent anxiety that could happen again, that someone just got lucky last time. Then there's the people that actually lost people for whatever reasons, but it was during that time, so that enhanced the trauma of losing that person, or loss. Um, it's deep. It goes really, really deep, and I feel like that's part of the reason why people also went hard right initially this last year, these last couple of years. It was definitely part of the reason, because those were, number one, those were the only groups that were seemingly speaking truth to power, that were saying we would have done everything differently, but they were just actually utilizing the situation, manipulating the situation to gain power for themselves, and they wouldn't do anything differently. But people bought into it and thought, oh, we're safe with them. But we're so not. We're so not. And I feel like the US is starting to wake up to that and is leading the charge. And they don't want the US to lead the charge or people, but they are. Hmm. People's nervous systems are shot. Yeah, absolutely shot with the insecurity, the financial insecurity, um, insecurity of everything. Like the insecurity has gone up so high because we've realized that we are a collective and that a part of our consciousness is the collective consciousness. So when we're tapped into something that is completely unstable and that is always today it's like this, tomorrow it's like that, or it's somehow it doesn't feel anymore like it's working in your favor, like it's free and open, or that it loves you. It changes things dramatically, dramatically. And I don't even think that, in all honesty, and this might sound harsh, and I don't know, I wasn't there, so maybe I shouldn't think like that. But what I'm feeling or perceiving is that even during World War II, it wasn't, in air quotes, wasn't, it was absolutely horrific. But I feel like the last 5 years was in a more subtle way, even more horrific. In World War II, people had each other, they had their value system, they had a collective consciousness of very clear black and white, right and wrong. Um, After World War II, it was for many years, the US was the white shining knight, and Germany was the black absolute evil. It was very dualistic in perspective and in the storytelling. And people really felt that they went through something and came out victorious, that they really won, that they owned, that they nailed it. But COVID was so diffuse. It was so weird that people don't really have a sense of closure. It just happens. Something weird happens. Something weird happened with them. They're not quite sure what. Um, Still no real fundamental truth to stand on to this day. And it's a very unsettling thing. So people get, yeah, some people get angry, some people get fearful, some people, everybody reacts differently. But one thing is for sure, it's a lot more, the world feels more uncertain. And mm, even within your own family for a lot of people. Yeah. So it's really, 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 really interesting. But I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see how things are moving forward and that people are, like yesterday, like I said, it's a momentous moment, and we really have to anchor this in and talk about it, speak about it, look at it. And not only with the eye of criticism or the eye of, oh, it's all BS anyways, because this whole negative polarizing that the light has no power in our world, that it doesn't show up in our world. When it shows up in our world, it's always distorted or completely negative. We have to be mindful of that because that takes away our hope. It takes away our, positive forward thinking, and we need that positive forward thinking to manifest positivity in our future. We need to be able to hold on to something. So from what I'm being told from the inside, this is something positive that happened, but it was used as a distraction calculatingly in order to push ahead other agendas somewhere else. And so people then, when they hear that, some people might get, you know, disillusioned in a way, or feel like, oh, nothing ever works, nothing, it does work. In spite of that, it does work. It does work. It does work. It does work. And we need to keep pushing forward, but also being mindful that yes, they will use what we're doing and um, try to turn it against us. Hmm. And we have to dig in for a real fight. but that's for Patreon, not for here. But yeah, there was something else I also wanted to speak about the dark coming in and utilizing those closest to you. So you have to be mindful and aware of that as well. That the things that you thought you could rely on might turn. So be wary of that as well. And why? Because we're meant to rely on one thing and one thing only, and that is the power of the divine, the power of spirit. Building up your faith, building up your connection, building up your strength in that is imperative during these times. And because everything that has come before, all the solutions, ideas, information, in that sense, it can help a little, but what's really going to guide you forward is your own inner compass, your own inner system, your own inner guide, your own inner intuition, your own inner connection with God. That is it. You need to build that up. And that way, God can also work through you. And then you're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right people, and pushing forward a divine agenda. You become a tool in God's hands that pushes forward a divine agenda, divine light. And you're not further manipulated by the machinations. So it's that is the one thing that I'd really want to leave with you guys, is to really focus on that, focus on that, focus on that, and to focus on also clearing out all the things that would stand in the way of a clear connection or a clear frequency. And that can be more tricky because it has to do with healing, right? So continue your healing work. And but be consistent. Be consistent every day with your prayers or your meditations or your runs or however it is that you personally, individually connect with the divine. Be consistent. Do it every single day. It's getting so much more important. And because just like the dark works through people, and we like to say that, it works through these politicians, it works through people in power, it deceives people that start off with wanting to utilize power for good things, and then it gets distorted, and on and on and on it goes. At the end of the day, it's still a personal choice of these people to follow those whispers, to follow that inclination, to follow that drive. They have every option to say no and choose not to. But same with us. We have every option to say yes to the divine, yes to a higher consciousness, yes to a brighter light. And we routinely choose not to. So it's really important to practice saying yes to God, yes to this higher light, and allowing God to work through us, and giving God a possibility to work in this. Because oftentimes we cry, God, where are you? And why is God not working through us? Why is God not coming in? Well, through whom? Through whom, if not you? And use that connection to bring something more beautiful into this world and to strengthen that. And like I said, I feel like yesterday was definitely a start. Okay, you guys, with that, I think I'll wrap this up unless you have any other questions. I'm curious too about the change. What will the collective choose for real? For real, real. For real, real. It's heating up. But that's because there are two avenues, and I'm not quite sure what avenue they're going to choose. And there are two avenues that we can go down now. And the final thing is either there's going to be a revolution on the inside or a war on the outside, one or the other. And I'm not quite sure which way they're pushing it yet, or which will come first. Maybe I should say that. I'm not quite sure, but we'll see. But I will talk further on that over on my Patreon. So if you guys are not on my Patreon, sign up, because that's where I'm going to be putting more interesting stuff. And yeah, sign up for my Substack. Otherwise, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for watching, and let me know how it goes. Take care. Bye.